the Small Business Development Center program here at the University of La Verne. And I'm excited to welcome you to our online event talking about everyone's favorite, establishing a professional domain, website, and email for your small business. And as everybody's getting online, I like to just kind of take care of some housekeeping items and talk a little bit about the Small Business Development Center if you don't already know. In a nutshell, we have a great program here called the SBDC at the University of La Verne that is, in a nutshell, grant-funded program funded by the Small Business Administration, the Governor's Office of Small Business, GoBiz, as well as the University of La Verne. A lot of organizations coming together for a very simple mission, and that's to help business owners just like you either get started or grow. And we do that two ways largely. We do workshops and events just like we're doing today, all throughout the year. And then probably more notably, what we're known for is our free one-on-one consulting, where you can kind of sit down with a business consultant and talk about your business and how to get from A to B. And every business is different. And that's where we have a team of consultants that we pair you up with, depending on what you need help with. So we're going to put a link in the chat and on how to get signed up for our free consulting. So we can kind of put into practice a lot of the things that we're probably going to talk about today to help you move the needle for your business, depending on where you're at. But as we get started, I like to take care of some housekeeping items. And first thing, I want to give a big shout out to our local chambers of commerce that are helping us to cross-post this event and share it far and wide. We got a really good one for you today. And if you don't know your local chamber of commerce, I challenge you to get to know them, because they're a great resource, especially for if you're a new business entering the business community, or if you're an established business and, to get to know your business, your local community better. They're a great hub and resource that we work with closely to help businesses because, well, like the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it definitely takes community to raise a business, and being part of that community is really important. But if you're like me, when you join a webinar, the first thing you're always wondering is, can they hear me? I don't want to be that person that's, unmuted. So don't worry. Everybody's going to be on mute if you're joining us today on Zoom. And of course, if you're on social, no, we cannot hear you. So don't worry. But we do want to hear you, and we want to get your questions answered. So my second challenge for you today is to be brave and put your questions in the Q&A feature today with us on Zoom. If you're joining us on Zoom, if you're joining us on social, be sure to drop them in the comments, because we have Joshua Botello and Sophia Nyborg Anderson who are going to be helping us out moderating those questions. And again, I say be brave because, well, it's kind of scary sometimes to ask a question, but if you're thinking it, someone else out there probably is too. So be brave and get your questions in, and don't worry about spelling, but do think about the question. I know it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes, but the more information we can get out there, the better. And just, keep that in mind. And be sure to give us a like and comment, or a thumbs up, if you will, depending on the platform. I know we're streaming to YouTube too. So another thing I wanted to mention as we get started, the first question we often get is, well, two. One, will this be recorded? And two, how can I get a copy of those fancy slides that we're going to take a look at? And the answer to both questions is yes, you will get a copy, because this will be recorded. We're streaming this live. So as soon as we end our webinar, you can go back and watch it over and over, because it's going to be great information. And if you registered for our event, you will get a copy of the slides through a follow-up email that will be sent following. So we've got you covered in case you need to step away, take a quick business phone call. We don't want to interrupt your business, but we've got you covered. So with those housekeeping items out of the way, it's my honor and distinct pleasure to introduce to you our speaker for today, because he knows the challenges that small business owners face, because he's a small business owner himself. He's the founder of Braven Agency, which is a digital marketing agency focusing on small to medium-sized businesses. He's run hundreds, probably if not thousands, of entrepreneurial workshops in both English and in Spanish for tech companies like Google, QuickBooks, Univision, to name a few. And he's also a Google digital coach and a national trainer, where he trains diverse small businesses on how to use digital tech tools to grow their small business. So without further ado, I'd like to please welcome the one and only Roberto Martinez.
That was amazing, Sean. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your passion for helping small business owners like myself. I absolutely love your center. I love what you do at Laverne. So it is a great fanfare. You have a future as a broadcaster. That is definite.
I've been told I have a face for radio. So, but I gotta say, thank you for joining us today, and having you is a real treat to all of us because, well, we've worked together for many, many years. And I've seen you help so many small businesses over those years. And to have you be back with us today at the University of Laverne SVDC is honestly a real treat. So I know today's topic is one that is a very important one, especially as you're getting started. And even down the line, we work with business owners on the same topic, even further down the line once they're already up and running. So it's a really relevant topic, I think, for our small businesses.
Well, that's great. I'll jump right into it. I want to make sure we maximize our time here and we answer as many questions as those folks in the audience have. I know that you guys are submitting your questions. Feel free to submit those questions. Feel free to tell us where you're visiting us from, where you're joining us from. Anytime you help us better understand your business, this particular workshop runs a lot more efficiently, a lot more smoothly, and it helps us provide you the necessary answers you have for your business. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help you guys. We hope to help you scale, help you grow. And in this particular workshop, it's all around your professional domain, websites, emails for your business. A lot of folks sometimes get confused. There's a lot of murkiness in this particular space. For me, this is a great workshop because it really defines what each particular piece of the puzzle you need to create a website, just the beginning phase, and to look professional in the professional setting online. So with that, let me get started. Sean already did a great introduction. I won't spend too much time. What I will say is if you do have any questions in the future, feel free to shoot me an email regarding Google tools, Google services, anything and everything regarding the particular marketing tools you use with Google. I'm happy to assist you and answer questions that you may have. Feel free to follow me on social. I've been doing this for Google for 6 years now. I think I'm reaching the 1,000 number, Sean. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm definitely getting there. And it's very exciting because I get to grow with you guys. I get to see you guys develop as entrepreneurs, as savvy digital marketers, as entrepreneurs. So we have Veronica jumping in and saying she's a hair salon from Pomona. Love it, love it. Thank you so much for joining us, Beto. Always great to see the first folks just jump in there and let us know where they're visiting us from. Help us understand who's in the audience so we can better tune this presentation. Okay, with that, let's start by talking about a domain and why that's so important. So press 1 in the audience if you have a website already, and press 2 in the audience if you do not have a website. 1 if you have a website, 2 if you don't have a website. Sean obviously has a website. I'm going to go in there and type 1. I also have a website. And so as you start thinking about what a domain is, it's really the space where your prospective website is going to, it's the address of your prospective website. It's like your home address, but instead of or your business address, but instead of your business address, it's the address by which your particular company lives online. So we have 2221. Okay, great. James, obviously this is great. So when people talk to me about, hey, I need a domain, I need to set up a website, what's the first thing I tell them? Oh, have you bought your domain? And that is a flat fee cost that's monthly, yearly. It could be monthly, but primarily it's a yearly cost. And it allows you to be able to have that online address of your business on the website, on the World Wide Web, which is what we want. And so Google provides you the ability to buy a domain if you wanted to. And on top of that, if you do use Google's domain, you can also buy a professional email address. So let's go back on this particular slide. If you're looking at thinking about, hey, I want to buy I want to start my process by launching my website, what do you recommend is my first step? Well, I'll tell you right now, your first step should be to buy that domain. Figure out what it is that your company's name, go out there on Google Domain and look up if you actually have that domain available. And on average, as long as it's not a very popular domain, a popular domain would be like Google or like Facebook or like Instagram or like TikTok. Those domains are already owned. And if you want to buy them, they're going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. There's actually a whole industry around buying domains and then selling them at a high price. So you want to go out and actually buy your domain. That does not mean you now have an email address. You have to post that domain somewhere. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the first step is for you to buy that domain. And the great part about Google is that if you do use Google domain as your vendor to buy that domain, you can actually get an email address to go along with that domain. So let's say you're a baker, and in this example, Stacia is one of our amazing directors at Google. She's been doing well with Google training for almost 12 years now. She's just a rock star in my eyes. And we're using her as an example. She has her own baking company. And so this is her email address when she started. You know, she didn't have much money. She was getting started. She was selling her baked goods out of her home. And so just like you and I, when we start, we don't have a lot of funding to invest into doing everything right. So we just get the free accounts. But what happens is we have a Gmail account or a Hotmail account or an AOL account, but we want to communicate ourselves as being very professional. So what can you do? You can buy an email address, a professional email address that says the domain of your company. So in this scenario, Stasia's website is called stasiasbakery.com. That is the domain that she bought. And so if you, as a small business owner, want to convey that communication and want to see as professional, you can actually create a professional email address. So that's a little bonus there if you do want to use the Google domain website. So what is our agenda today? What are we going to go through today? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about what is a domain, choosing the right domain. A lot of people ask me, well, how do I make it really great? What do I do to make sure that my domain is popular? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about registering a domain with Google. And then we're going to go into how to build a website. So you have your actual address, which is your domain. Now, how do we use that domain to build an actual address? And does Google provide us any free tools available to allow us to set up that domain and set up our own website? Lastly, we're going to talk a little about creating a professional business account for your emails. And there's something called Google Workspace. So definitely want you to know a little bit about that. All right, let's get started. So what is a domain? For those of us who think they know, feel free to write it in the chat if you want to be interactive. Let us know what you think a domain is. I kind of give away the story, but it's definitely your online address online, on the web, on the World Wide Web. It's how people can visit your website. So anytime anyone types in that particular company name that you have, for example, SBDC Laverne, guess what's going to happen? It's going to pop up on the Google search engine, and you're going to be able to go directly to Sean and his team to get help on how to grow your business, how to use your financing, accounting, marketing, everything under the sun, because they do an amazing job in that SBDC. How do you find Sean online? Well, you type in their domain. So let's actually break that down into pieces. People use different words to represent domains. And so let's start with the first piece. Someone might say, what is your URL? So you're working with a web developer, you're working with an agency that is creating your website, you decided to spend some money in investing into creating a website. They might ask you what a URL is. And what that means is the complete website address. So what does the complete website address mean? Well, it means http://www and then your company name. That's what the URL represents. It's the whole location. Now, we obviously don't say, hey, my website is http. No one does that. We actually just shorthand it and say Stasia's Bakery or SBDC Laverne. Like we don't say HTTP. So the domain name is the exact name that you're using for your online address, which is your website. Now, you need that domain to direct people to where your content lives, which is your website. So it's like, okay, let's visualize this as an analogy. What a real world analogy, your domain name is your business address in the real world. And as an example, so when you go to a store, the store itself, the address of the store that you're going to is what the domain is. And as you walk into the store and you look at all their goods and services, that's the equivalent of your website. So you direct them to the domain name, and then they get into the domain, which is your website, and you start seeing how amazing you are as a particular a hairstylist, hair salon, what have you.
Yeah, Robert, if I could jump in real quick, I
Yes.
always use the analogy of a house. Like if
Oh,
you're
even
going to
better.
someone over to your house, you give them your physical address, 123 Sample Street. So that way they can go into Google Maps, right? And get their directions. But the domain name is like your physical address, but onto your website. So yeah, I love the analogy piece. Just had to share.
No, that's exactly right. It's actually your home, and we want to make sure that we make it as easy as possible for that prospective customer to find our address. Imagine giving a very convoluted address to your aunts or your uncle or your friends to come over to your house. Hey, come over to my house. Well, what's your address? Oh, it's 5736 West Scherzer Avenue, 5736. And they're going to look at you like, what the heck? How do I even get there? Is that even the address? So we simplify that by actually going out there and buying a domain to make it as easy as possible for folks to remember that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And here it is. Why is it important for you to register a custom domain? Make it as easy as possible for folks to find you on search. You meet them, they love you. Oh, yes, you have amazing hair. I didn't know you had a hair salon. That's fantastic. How would I find you online? I'm like, oh, just go online and type in yourcompanyname.com, right? So for me, it'll be like, oh, go to Braven Agency. Just type it in on the Google search. And once they do that, your website's going to come up because maybe they don't remember verbatim what the complete name is, but now they have a shorthand version of how to find your address. Also, brand building. You want to make sure the prospective customer remembers your company. And so that domain acts as a shorthand of what your overall business is. So naming it is extremely important, right? It's a shorthand for them to like, oh, okay, Vero Salon. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. What do they do? They're a salon partner. I get it now. I don't have to think much about what it is. So it helps build your brand. Also, professionalism. You want to build trust. For me, professionalism is all around trust. You want to trust me. You want to trust Sean. And if Sean was sending you an address that said SBDC 573 Laverne hyper slash colon, you look at him like, I don't know if I can trust Sean. I don't know if that's actually him running an SBDC or he's running the SBDC out of his office or out of his apartment or out of his house, whatever it happens to be. So you want to build that professionalism, you want to build that trust with the prospective customer by having that professional looking domain. And then access to tools. Once you have that domain, it opens you up to add different tools like Google Workspace, which we'll touch on a little bit later. Any questions so far? If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them on the chat. We have an amazing team of SBDC representatives here helping us answer and facilitate your questions.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's a good time. Actually, Josh, any questions on social yet? I know, and be brave. Again, I'm challenging everybody on the Zoom and watching us on social. Get those questions in because I know sometimes the jargon, I feel like in business, you got business jargon from accounting and that's scary. But even on the digital side, things like domain and web hosting, I know we're going to get into it, but don't be scared or be brave, I should say. But any questions, Josh? Or are we good to go?
No, we're good to go.
All right.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sean. All right. So choosing a good, there's a very famous French philosopher that said the perfect is the enemy of the good. And shorthand, you don't have to be perfect. It has to be good. Just good enough is good. Just get started. So most people get hung up on, oh, it's not the right .com or it's .net or .co. We want you to have a strong domain, but if they don't have the domain that you want, don't get discouraged. It's okay. Find one that's closer to what you need. So sometimes you want to buy the domain that you want to buy, but someone already bought it. That happens that you'll be surprised how often that happens. So don't get hung up on that. Get hung up on what am I trying to convey? And whatever it is, it's better than not having a domain, right? So do not try to get the perfect domain. I had clients before, they're like, no, I want to pay the $5,000 for that domain. And I was like, I get it, I understand. Maybe in the future you can do that. Let's get you making money. Let's get you online. Let's get you growing online. So let's start there, and then we can start talking about using that money that you made to buy that domain. Because guess what? Once you have your online presence, once you have your website, once you're hosting, you can actually transfer your website to another domain if you want in the future. So don't get hung up on this. And it's a very straightforward process. It might cost you some money, but it will not cost you the tens of thousands of dollars that the domain that you want to buy might cost you. So this happened to me a couple of years ago. I launched a software company and I really wanted the .com, and they didn't have the .com. The person who owned the .com lived in Japan. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'll buy your domain. Do you want it? I'll even transfer over the hosting to your new domain. And that lady said, it is not for sale.
Ah,
And it's, you know what, you accept it. You're like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to use code. It's fine. It's okay. It's conceptually, it does the same thing. All right. So Veronica says, I started to buy a domain. However, I'm not sure if I did it correctly. I'm using MailChimp. Well, I don't know if MailChimp offers domains, but I know Google Domains offer domains, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So we can definitely dive into that. And Cheryl says, which domains are free? Well, great question. Most domains cost you on average between $10 and $20 a year. So it's not a big investment. It's a worthwhile investment. For you not having coffee for 3 days, most coffees are not $5. You could buy a domain, right? Just forgo coffee for 3 days and you'll have your domain. As a matter of fact, there's this whole marketing strategy around what we call backlinking and having multiple domains that are popular and redirecting them to your website. So in the beginning of the internet, a lot of folks started buying domains. And let's say we have Sean Snyder Consulting, that's his domain, right? That's his actual home website. He's an amazing consultant. He's a rockstar consultant for government and for business. And that's his actual main point of business where he wants people to send them. But he was also fast enough to buy all these other domains that talk about bestconsultant.com or greatestconsultant.com and financialconsulting.com and businessconsultant.com. And so he bought all these other domains, but those domains don't have a website behind them. So what he can do is what's called a reroute. So when someone clicks on that domain, guess what happens? They reroute that prospective customer to SeanSnyder.com. And that builds more and more traffic to your website, right? It's a strategy. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but do not worry about it. So to answer your question, Google does provide you a domain, but guess what? It's very convoluted. It could be, what's your business, by the way, if you drop in the chat or the question, your business. Let's say your business is coffeestars.com. Google will give you a free domain, but it'll be coffeestars.com, coffeestars1736g.com. So for someone to remember, that's going to be very difficult. It's free, but it comes at a cost. Okay, so remember, good, not perfect. So what do we want to consider? KIS, classic rule, keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, keep it short, keep it memorable. Always try to incorporate keywords and your brand if possible. So what is a keyword? Just define that. A keyword is what a prospective customer might be using to look for the service or the product that you sell. So marketing would be a keyword for a marketing agency. Salon might be a keyword for a salon parlor. Consulting might be a keyword for a consultant, right? So those are things that you might want to incorporate into your domain. And then consider alternate domain endings. What is a domain ending? It's what I was mentioning a little bit earlier. It's the .com, the .net, the .co. Sometimes they might have our company name, but they don't have the .com with it. So it might be .co that you might need to go with. It might be .net that you need to go with. There's a variation of them that you can leverage. I was mentioning my story of the Japanese business owner who was not willing to sell her domain, even though that website was like 7 years old. No one's using it. No one's going to it. Heartbreaking, but I didn't let that get hung up, and I still launched my company. It's .co. It looks great, and I'm moving forward. Okay. Great question, Maggio. The question is, if you already have a registered domain and a site, can you use the domain to build another site on Google as well? No, you can't. So very clear, Maggio, you can have the domain as one address. So it's like you cannot have multiple homes within your domain, right? It's not like a single unit complex in the back of your home. It can only be one. You could have another domain and then build another website and another domain and then build another website underneath that. But you cannot have multiple businesses. You cannot have multiple websites under one domain, only be one. Kind of like Highlander for those of us who grew up in the 80s, only be one. Okay, so here's an example. Keep it short. Short names are easier to type. Short names are easier to remember. Try not to exceed more than 3 words. Very important. Station Bakery. So that gives you simplicity is key here because you want to be top of mind. You want to be able to remember. And you know, a lot of folks sometimes we are so passionate about our business. We use words that are jargon, as Sean was pointing out a little bit earlier. And that jargon throws off your prospective customer because they might not be in tune with the words that you're using. So you might, they might not know how to spell it, or it might be hard to recall. And so you want to use very universal words that convey what you're selling. Bakery is a very easy word to remember. People are definitely going to remember something like that. So when we talked about finding keywords, is understanding what the word represents and having a clear communication for that prospective customer to at a glance know, well, that's the business I want to go after. And then including the business name, products or services, or location. Sean Snyder Laverne will be an example of that. Sean Snyder Laverne, that's 4 words. It's actually 3 words, but still we're kind of staying in line with the recommendation Google is providing. And then including your business name helps out increase your brand awareness, brand recognition, and it's going to help boost your recognition. So my agency is called Braven Agency. People are like, Braven's not even a word. Fully right. The reason I called it Braven Agency is because I believe entrepreneurs like yourselves are brave. So to me, okay, you guys are brave. Sean kept talking about being brave. You guys stood up and said, hey, you know what? I'm jumping in the deep end. I'm going to try to help people out by my products and services. I am providing a solution to the marketplace. And this is a lot harder than having a 9-to-5 job. That to me is very brave. And I admire you guys for being brave. So I said, how do I honor the people that I work with? Let me name my company after those folks that I'm working with. So I called it Braven Entrepreneur. So it's a mixture of brave and entrepreneurs, Braven. So there you go. That's how I came up with my name. I paid a marketing strategist to come up with that. I'm not that creative, but it really conveyed the point that I feel comfortable with. And an agency tells the prospective customer that I provide some type of service as an agency. Okay, whoops, we're going way too fast here. GoBeyond.com, right? There's a lot of different domain endings, which is like .com, .academy, zone. It all depends what you're trying to communicate. If you're a product line, I'm having a meeting with a client in a couple of hours, and she's launching an e-learning site. So obviously we can use .com or we can use .academy. So it all depends on how much you want to zone in and zero in on differentiating yourself in the marketplace. Okay. So how do we go about registering a name with Google Domains? Let me pause there before I jump into the next section. We're moving fairly quickly. I feel confident we're going to get everything done. If no one has any questions, I'll keep moving and grooving. All right, how do we register a domain with Google Domains? So now we're going to go into the tactical approach. If we do want a domain, for those of us who do not have one, how do we go about doing it? Well, we go to Google Domains and we start searching to see if there are any domains that we want to buy according to our specific business name, keeping it simple, using keywords, raising that brand. And so we type in using the Google domain search if our domain is available. So we go on Google Domains, domains.google, and that's it. We move forward, and then we type in the domain we want to go after. And then Google will tell us, okay, fantastic. Here's all the domains are available, and your domain is available, or your domain is not available, and here's the price points. So again, I kind of talked about what the benefit is. Domain forwarding, remember I told you you could own multiple domains. So I get emails maybe once a week with folks. I am based out of Long Beach, California, for my agency. And so I get emails all the time that send me, hey, would you like to buy longbeachmarketingagency.com or longbeachadvertising.com? And what are they doing? They're selling a domain because they're assuming that I know that if I have that domain and people are typing in the Google search engine or on the Google, on the URL, Long Beach Marketing, will direct them to me, right? So that's like, oh, you might get free traffic to your website. That's what domain forwarding is. You're forwarding someone who typed in their domain to your particular website. Security, you want to be secure. You want to make sure that your site is secure, really important. Privacy, same thing. You want to make sure that you're controlling the messaging, you're controlling the back end of the website. You're making sure that you have privacy restrictions there, as opposed to just living the free World Wide Web. Google integrations, there's a lot of different tools that you can integrate using Google Search Console, the big one that I would highly recommend for those of us who have a website already. You want to integrate and use the way you validate your website is through a URL, and you use that URL to validate that you are the owner, and it'll connect you to Google Search Console. Also, Google Workspace will essentially declare a little bit later. And then clear pricing. I'll tell you exactly what the cost of a domain is. So here's the example, Stations Bakery. We typed it in, and this is what came up. They do not have .co, right, as you see here, but they do have .net, .org, .info, .us, and so on and on and on. There's all these variation of endings that you can actually buy, not just these four. But that gives you some insight on all the different types of endings you can have as a website. And then it tells you exactly how much it costs. Does it cost $12 a year? Yes, fantastic. I'm willing to spend $12. It's a very, very low price point to have an official domain that's mine, that talks about my business, that really hits at what I'm trying to accomplish. And then there's a component here which Google provides that other perspectives don't provide. That tells you other perspective competition does not provide, which tells you how popular is this domain? Is it too long? Is it too short? Is it just right? Helping you better understand the marketing component of your domain. And then if you do want to buy it, you go to the little shopping cart, you click on it, and it adds that domain. It tells you exactly what we talked about, $12 a year, you put down your credit card, and then it also asks you, hey, would you like to buy Google Workspace, which is at the bottom. And you see it right here. Google Workspace is you buying a email address and so much more. I mean, there's just we have a whole workshop on what Google Workspace is. And I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but it's in essence, your business workspace where it gives you your Google Drive, and within the Google Drive, all the productivity applications that you can use that Google provides to you. You get it no matter what once you sign up with a Gmail account, but this is specific to your business. So when you sign up, you can actually have a personalized, let's say stationsbakery.net, and now your Google Drive and your Google Productivity and Google email address will be, stationsbakery.net, and you'll have a Google Drive where you can access all your different files, all the different productivity tools like Google Slides, Google Workspace, Google Presentations, all of that in one place. Really useful tool. I actually use it, and not just because I'm a Google representative, but because I see the value in it. Sean.
I was going to say it's so important to really make that key separation as you're starting a business, and because before everything was under one email account, and but having a separate digital space, like we talked about the domain name being the address for your website. I think having a separate digital space is so critical nowadays, because what you're doing today as a business owner, you will probably do again next year or again and again, and being able to curate all of that into a kind of a digital space is so key and critical. So I just wanted to share that part as you're starting out.
Yes, Sean, and the way I view it is, for those of us who have accountants and financial advisors, they all tell you, do not commingle your personal with your business bank accounts. Do not do it, because if you get audited, it's going to be a headache, and it opens up for legality issues, right? Because if you commingle your personal with your financial, then a prospective client can come after your personal. So it's just a big mess. So what you want to do is have a clear delineation, clear separation. Here's my personal email address that I get all my coupons and all my free get $5 off if I sign up. And here's my business, which is buttoned down, professional, communicative, all the workspace. So it helps you divide and conquer, is the way I like to say it. So great advice, Sean. Okay, so once we do that, we click on buy, and then you're able to get started. If you already have a domain, you can transfer it over to Google. So let's say you went on a third-party site like GoDaddy and you bought a domain, but you don't want to use GoDaddy for whatever reason. There's a lot of different providers that provide domains, and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to keep everything in one place. I don't want to have 5 different domain companies that I have 5 different domains. I want one. you can transfer it over. So it can be hosted and maintained within your Google domain profile, which is very useful. When I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. And so I had, this website with one domain and that website with another domain. And once I started getting more sophisticated, I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't want to have 5 different companies that have 5 different domains. Then they keep everything in one place. Kind of like what we're talking about, your email addresses, your personal versus your business. Keep everything in one place. Keep it simple. Don't confuse yourself. Okay. So what happens all the time. My domain is taken. What do I do about it? What do you recommend? Tweak it just a little bit. Twist it around. See what works. Start fresh. Remember, there's no such thing as a perfect domain. You think anyone knew what Google was when Google started, or Facebook was? I love the Facebook. No, keep it simple, keep it fresh, keep it refreshing and engaging. Question: Sarah asked, "Is it just preference to use your name as a domain versus the company name?" Great question, Sarah. I don't know what your company is, so this comes down to a strategy. Are you the business, or is your business outside of yourself the business? In other words, we talked about the example of Sean being a consultant, and consultant extraordinaire. He's a jack of all trades. He knows a lot about a lot. So are we selling Sean, or are we selling the consultancy? Are you trying to scale the company so that it becomes a big consulting company, or are we just trying to create a lifestyle company where you bring in the business, you service the business, you take care of all of it? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's not one or the other. You could still own your own business, name it yourself, and then have people work underneath you, like Sarah, let's say Syracuse Consulting, and that's your domain, and then you have people working underneath you. Or, let's say you're a financial advisor, financial advising extraordinaire, and that's your business name. And then you're the principal, you're the CEO of the company, and then you have people working underneath you. It's entirely what you feel is best able to drive revenue, drive prospective customers to follow you. Usually what I advise clients in this scenario is if you have a product line, not on a name in your company, but if you have a service and you are the face and you are the name and you already have a lot of cachet, people know you. A lot of folks, use their name. I have a friend that's she's a social etiquette. She's like this Stacy, the social etiquette queen. That's what her name is. I have one under Scrub and Clean and an educational coach. So those are 2 different companies. Scribble and Mern is one type of company, and then educational coaching is another type of company. So very key distinction here. I love this example because many times as we start, we realize, well, we just don't do one thing very well. We'll do a lot of things very well. So what you're selling, what it sounds like to me is that you have 2 different services, the service offerings, and you're bringing it under one umbrella, which is fine as you get started. But this is just marketing and like human self-awareness and our ability to remember. You want to be known for one thing and one thing only, right? And the more you're known for that one thing, the more people are going to remember you by that one thing. You can have multiple one things, but once you start bringing in other concepts into your business, then what is that one thing? So for example, you're networking and you're talking to different folks and they say, Sarah, so what does Sarah do? Oh, she scrubs and learns and scribble and learns. So she's a copywriter. She helps people improve their writing. She's also an educational coach. And she's also, and so now the person that's listening to this message has to remember Sarah's not just one thing. Sarah's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things. Now, how much cognitive awareness does that person need to have? So now they're talking to someone else and they're like, hey, that girl you were talking to, what does she do? And they're going to be like, well, she kind of does educational coaching. I think she also does convoluted already, right? Oh, Sarah provides strong copywriting. That's the one thing she does. And then she has another company that does educational coaching. So depending on your audience, you want to differentiate those 2 messages to make it as clear as possible what you do. And some businesses create 2 different companies. Literally, the same lady we're talking about that's launching their educational platform, she has a translation company And that's one thing, and she's known for that. She's built an amazing business around that one thing, translation. But now she's realizing, hey, there's a whole other space on training translators that I'm realizing everyone, hey, you know what? Your business is very successful. How do I replicate that business model? Well, let me show you. But if she does it under one banner, then it's going to confuse a prospective client. So what is she doing? She's separating the two. She's launching one company. She has an established company, and then she's spinning off another company to directly inform on that particular piece. So that's what I would recommend to you, Sarah. Understanding what your biggest driver of revenue is, and then differentiating it. That doesn't, or you can actually slot it underneath and say part of what we do in Scribble and Learn is provide educational coaching. So that becomes a service offering within your category. So it's not a standalone service, it's a part of your overarching company. It just depends how you position what's called your value proposition. No, of course, Sarah, I struggled with it my whole life. So we're in the same boat.
We're all in the same boat. I think it's a constant.
Great. So you guys could start right now. You guys could go on Google Domains, domains.google, look up if they have the domain that you want, click to get it to see what's available. And you could just put it on the cart. You don't have to buy it. It's there. When I first, a lot of folks have FOMO, so I'd be like, oh, we like it, $20, easy. I'll buy it. Who knows if I use it or not? I just have it there. That's what I did. Like I bought like 3 or 4 domains. I'm like, I don't know which one's the best one. I think these 4 are really strong. And then once I talked to my strategy team, they're like, yeah, those were terrible. I'm like, keep this one, leave that one. Because I don't want to lose. Like, I don't want to lose a domain that I actually like. So I would recommend doing that. Maybe you guys are a little bit more, congratulations, Veronica. We have someone that just bought a domain. How cool is that?
Well, and Roberto, if I jump in, what I like about Google Domains is, and you hit on it, but the privacy. A lot of times when you register, or you're buying a domain elsewhere, they kind of upsell you for privacy. So that's baked in with Google Domains. You also get, notifications like, hey, your email or your domain is going to renew. I have mine coming up at the end of May. It's not Sean Snyder. Someone had it. It's Sean R. Schneider. So, but no, it's a really cool tool. And I love the tips that it gives you. Like, this is too short. This is too long. Because it's that old, what is in a name? Would a rose be less beautiful if called by another name?
Oh, you have no idea. I was trying to buy my domain, Roberto Martinez, and you can just imagine how popular of a name that is. And it's just heartbreaking. You're like, dang it, I wanted to buy my domain, but it's because you're branding yourself, right? And that's a whole other exercise. I have a really cool friend that just left the Google family. He bigger and better things, greener pastures. But he said, you know what I did? I have my own coaching company and I'm doing really well there, but I want to raise my SEO. So what I did is I launched my own personal website about myself. And I started incorporating all the coaching I did, and it fed into my primary company, which is brilliant. Like, I'm like, wow, it's very, he did this 2 years ago. He's a doer. He's like, and it's like, yeah, it's not a beautiful website. It's not an amazing website. It doesn't really drive any revenue to me, but what it does, it helps me on the SEO side, which we can touch on a little bit later. I know we're coming up on time, so I want to get through the rest of this. Oh, look at that. See, Veronica, you're just like me. I'm like, I don't want anyone owning multiple domains. I want to own my own, and I'll buy 1 or 2 or 3. I'll pay the $12. I'll forego 2 or 3 days of coffee to get the ones that I like. Okay. So let's keep moving and grooving. Any questions there before we get to the third part, the third act? Unfortunately, this is the tail end of the presentation, but any questions before I move on?
Yeah, it looks like we got one from Veronica. It says, I have plans to publish a book about different business than the salon. Thank you. So that's more of a comment.
Okay, very cool.
Way to go, Veronica.
Yeah, keep going. I get inspired when I hear you guys' stories. It helps me wake up in the morning. Sometimes you kind of like, oh, no, this is something you look forward to. They hear people's journey and their entrepreneurship, not the destination, it's the path and being present. So really exciting. So let's talk about websites. So there's a Google domain. You can build your own website, no hosting fee. The only cost of domain. Responsive, no design programming needed. This is, I'm not, how do I say this? When we're first getting started, anything is better than nothing, right? perfect. The good is better than not having anything. The perfect is the enemy of the good. Let's have something there. As we build functionality, we can invest more and more into investing into our website. But Google does provide you a Google site, and it's a one-page microsite, what I call a microsite, very like low fidelity or like low capability of providing everything that we are, because you guys and your business are amazing. But let's just get started. Let's get something out there. Let's get something to live online to get started. And then we could build an amazing, beautiful, well-developed, well-loved website that's 5, 10, 15 pages. But let's just get started and let's get a website out there. So that's what Google Sites offer you. And it's once you buy that domain, you can use it. Google Sites also provides you different styles. So if you want to look it up and see the different types of templates you can use for a Google site, go to Google Sites, click on New Sites, and select the template that fits your particular need. Again, not a fully fledged. You're not going to get a amazing, high-end, high-value website that other businesses have. This is just, let's get you online. Let's get you started. Let's get you moving in the right direction. Then we can go and invest more money into maybe a larger build out. Okay, so here's an example. As you can see, low fidelity. What I mean by low fidelity is the design elements are rudimentary. They're not going to wow you with their interface, the way you interact with the website or the design elements. This is just to get in front of it. So you can add your name, delete images, add files, just communicate what the basic value of your company is. And then you can publish it and it goes, what do I mean by publishing it? It means that it goes live. You can actually go live into the World Wide Web using this particular tool. And so now when people type in your domain, you'll be able to be found. So here is a very key distinction. You see the URL here, sites.google.com Stations Bakery. Very long, right? But if you bought a domain that's just stationsbakery.net, very short. What are people going to remember, right? They're not going to remember sites.com / all that good stuff. They're just going to remember Stations Bakery and try to find it. So some high-level tips. We have a whole class around website design and website strategy. So Sean and I will talk about it. This is something you guys care about, want to discuss a little bit in the future. Happy to have a workshop around that. So what do I mean by goal-oriented? Goal-oriented is like, what is the first thing you want the prospective customer to do? What's the second thing? What's the third thing? That's called information architecture. So all it means is when you walk into a store, what do you think the store wants you to do? Right? Or when you walk into a grocery store and you're looking at the top shelf stuff, right? So there's definitely a logic behind everything. And what websites do is they use something called the CTA, a call to action. You land on the website, what's the first thing I want them to do? Give me a call. Or what's the first thing I want them to do? Give me your email address. Whatever that goal is, you have to outline the different goals that you want on the website. Organization is key. You provide the information the most relevant that makes you look the best right up front. Useful just means providing useful information, useful content that helps inform and delight the client so that they can trust you and buy from you. So for those salon parlors, and I'm sorry I keep using your example, you're the only person that used and told us the company name. So I'm using you as an example. You might say, make an appointment, right? Or different styles for summer, because summer's coming up, or whatever it is, anything that informs a prospective customer. Functionality over everything. You'll be surprised. I've worked with websites that are terribly visually, but convert. And so for me, it's hard for me to say, hey, yeah, let's put it, lipstick, let's make it look more beautiful if it's already converting. Because all I care about is you making money and you driving sales and you keep living the dream that you want once it's working in your business, right? Intuitive just means it's easy to use. If I click on this button, it's going to do something that I think it's going to do, right? That's extremely important. Sometimes we're trying to click and it's not doing anything. This doesn't happen as much, especially as we're building out high fidelity websites and stronger websites because they add the functionality there. I remember a couple of years ago, I was in Austin and they filmed for the barbecue and I was like, oh, okay. I clicked on the button. I went online, I went on my phone, and I started clicking on the button. It wasn't doing anything. I was like, why would they have that link there if it's not doing what it's saying it's supposed to be doing? I got so frustrated because I'm like, oh. So what I do, I left that website and I went to another website. Okay, search friendliness. What does that mean? It's easy to review the information that I need to take the action I want. That's all that means. Okay. Next piece, it's some quick activity. If you haven't have a website, you can go in there and build a website. We don't have time to give you to go through those 3-minute exercises, but for now in the future, you have some homework, some entrepreneurship work to go and check out Google sites and see if there's a template you like there to get started. All right, last but not least, setting up your email for your business. And so your email for your business is button down professional, and you could use email forwarding. Same thing with domain forwarding. You can have an email address. Like, so I have 2 email addresses. I have for my agency, I have robert@ravenagency.com and I have roberto@ravenagency.com. And because you never know, like my full name is Roberto, but some folks call me Robert. So I want to make sure I capture all the emails. So you could, so let's say my primary email is Roberto, but people use Robert. It forwards you the email that folks use to the primary account that you want. And so you can, at no cost to you when you buy a domain, use forward emailing. So let's say, for example, you have your personal email address, and then you buy the domain and now you want a professional one. It could direct those emails to your personal. Would I recommend doing that? No, but you can definitely do that as an option. And you could create as many aliases as possible. So what do they mean by this? So I had a client do this a couple years back. So they just started and they wanted to show signs. They're like, hey, you know what? I want people to think I'm like 10 people in and I have all these employees. And I was like, no, just be worried. She's like, no. She's like, no, I need them to believe that I have a lot of people. So she'll create multiple aliases. She'll create Stacy at accounting@mycompany.com, and she'll create John strategy at mycompany.com. So she created all these different email addresses with different department heads. She was still the only person receiving those emails, but it showed that she had size, right? It showed that she like, oh wow, it's bigger than just one person. For whatever reason, it worked for her. I would not do that. I would not recommend doing that, but you can definitely do that if you wanted to. So we talked about email forwarding. I'm not going to dwell on this too much unless you guys are like, no, I want to know about email forwarding. I think most people don't really use email forwarding, but it's a very easy way to go about using that. You drop in the name, the alias, and you drop in where you want the email to go to. Very straightforward. So what does it provide? It provides you that professional email address, stationsbakery.com, as opposed to gmail.com or AOL, or Hotmail, whatever it happens to be now. And so it allows you to have that professional look and feel to what, and why is that important? Because it provides reassurance and trust by that prospective client. Like, oh, this is not just a small business. This business has been around. It's invested into their own business. It's professional, so on and so forth. And once you do that, you get all these amazing tools like Gmail, Calendar, Meet, Chat, Drive. Like there's just a slew of different applications available to you once you do that. So yeah, so you have that professional setting and you can start using it to communicate to your prospective clients. I'm not going to dwell on this too much. You guys know the value of, because we all communicate with businesses through their professional email addresses. You know the difference between your personal, which is Gmail, and your professional, which is your business name. Okay, with that, we have a question by Lori. If our organization does events quarterly or every 2 months, will this be something to use? Lori, can you flesh out that question for me? When you say, are you talking about the domain or are you talking about the email? Because if your organization does quarterly events, there's a lot there you can do. So if you can help me better understand the question, I'll be more than happy to. Okay. And Michael, I can't really help you with that question. That's a technical assistance question. I wish I could, but unfortunately I can't. So let's wrap up this session and open up the Q&A. What is a domain name? We talked about that, right? It's your address, your home address, as Sean mentioned. Tips for choosing a domain. KIS, keep it simple. Use keywords. Use alternative domain endings. And then register your domain with Google Domains. You can build a website with Google Sites. And then buy yourself an email address so you can communicate how professional you are. And that's a monthly fee. So it might be like $12 a month, $13 a month, and you pay monthly. Or you can pay it a year out and it'll lower, like if you decide to pay it upfront for the year, I'll actually lower the cost of it. So up to you if you have cash on hand. And you know, I'm not gonna talk about inflation, but let's just say if you have cash on hand, it's better to spend it to get value now as opposed to the future. Really cool tool. I talked about this a little bit earlier. Google Search Console. It connects to your website and it helps your website communicate to the Google search engine so that it can streamline and better improve your SEO. We have Google Analytics as well. If you connect your website to Google Analytics, it helps you understand how many people are coming to your storefront, i.e. your website, what time, what's their demographics, what's the action they're taking, how long are they spending each day, each moment at those particular addresses. And then there's a bunch of certifications for you. If you have certifications that you want to get upskilled, we do have certifications for businesses. I don't know if this program is still running. I think it is. Last I spoke to my director, she said that they're still giving away up to 100,000 free certifications for small businesses. So I want you to definitely go here and apply if you want to upskill your workforce through these 5 certification programs. The one that I did was digital marketing and e-commerce. And the one that I want to do is project management. We'll see, I'm already a PM, but it's such a useful tool. All right. With that, let's try this out. For those of us, the offer already ended December 31st, so unfortunately it's no longer applicable to us. But keep learning. There's a bunch of free tools out there with Grow on Air, definitely useful. Just keep learning. Free tools available to you. Just go to Grow on Air, and we are always running different webinars for you to learn. And with that, thank you so much. Love to get your feedback. You know, let Google know, hey, this was a great session, really enjoyed it. Bring Robert back to the SBDC or fire Roberto. Don't ever bring him back. He's terrible.
No.
He's not it, my friend would say. Okay, here's the URL. Love to answer any questions you guys may have. Sean, I turn it over to you.
Yeah, no, and it's great information. I know we went fast, and this is really the first step. A lot of business owners are dipping their toe in the water. I think it's really important to take the time to focus on it, because even as Sarah mentioned on LinkedIn that she loves using Google Sites to do a lot of projects, and I use it the same way to even flesh out like a landing page, to think through in a website format that has a clear call to action. It's got a lot of good tools, and like you said, the templates might not be as robust or fidelity, the word I can't remember you use, but real high end. But this is where you can go to start to put the pieces down, because when you work with an agency or a web developer, having something to start with is so important to better convey what you're trying to do. Because when I first started building websites, I still remember the web developer I was working with, and he said, Sean, I need your content. And it's an easy sentence to say, but I was like, what do you mean by content? Like, he's like pictures, videos, text, paragraphs. And I was like, oh, why didn't you just say so? That is the time that it takes to build out a website. And with these tools that we've covered today, 1, they're inexpensive, and 2, they're really easy to use to get started. Now, it's not going to be perfect. And I'm that type of person, like many of us on the line, where I kind of get a little bit of paralysis through analysis. And I love what you said, be brave, or be brave in, I should say, because you're an entrepreneur and you're brave. So if there's any questions, Josh, Sophia, I know we went kind of quick, but that's how we have to do it in business.
There's no questions at this time. Thank you.
Josh, how's the social treating us?
Social's good. Looks like we're getting a lot of engagement, but
Okay.
I had a question for myself. How do you use Google Sites, or is there another property that you can use for blogging or some kind of news update information to give to your customers?
Great. So do you have a website?
I actually created a website for a training course that we did on Google Sites.
Great. Well, so there's a couple of things there. If it's just for you, again, perfect is the enemy of the good. Or you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be good. And so you can obviously create a site, and then Google Sites might not be the best place. You might want to actually invest into developing a site about your thoughts, your ideas, whatever you're providing out to the marketplace. But there's a lot of third-party blog sites that folks use. Medium is a big one. I think that's the biggest one that I would recommend. And my friend is in this great lawyer, fantastic lawyer, immigration lawyer, does a lot of great work, but he has a passion project to be a writer. And so he uses Medium as his space where he puts out his short stories and sometimes his blog and his journey. So it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And so what is the goal? Like I always start with like what the end in mind. What are we trying to accomplish or what are you solving for? So if you're solving for presenting your ideas, getting out there, adding value to people's lives through blogging, you can start with Medium and then move it over to your website once you create the website.
Oh, very nice. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I would just like to say thank you again for Roberto for taking your time to share these great resources with us. And of course, you definitely reach out to your SBDC, especially here at the University of La Verne SBDC, if you have other questions or need some assistance as you go through this process, because we're all in this together. And of course, we'll be sending out the follow-up email to everybody who registered. So check your email for a link to the recording as well as the slides. And be sure to join us next time. We're going to be talking about buying and selling businesses with Biz Buy Sell. So until then, we hope to see you next time.